I'm currently a first-year engineering student. I'm going to Queen's University. I wasn't able to go this year because of the whole COVID situation.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get a student rental property going so I can live there and rent it out to my roommates.
What does a bedroom rent for on average to like a Kingston student?
On the low side, about 600. On the high side, about 800.
If you can get like 700 or more a month per bedroom and you can buy a bedroom for 75,000, I think that's a great deal. Even if you end up having to pay for utilities, if you don't have to pay for utilities, that's going to be an even more fantastic cash flowing opportunity. What is up, YouTube? Matt McKeever here with another episode of Deal Destruction, and today we're going to be checking out some properties in Kingston with Brandon. Hey, Brandon, how's it going?
Hey, Matt. How are you?
Good. So I'm excited to be checking out these properties with you today in Kingston, but before we get into that, do you mind just providing a little bit of context for the audience, maybe your background, your experience with investing?
Yeah, so I'm currently a first-year engineering student. I'm going to Queen's University. I wasn't able to go this year because of the whole COVID situation.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get a student rental property going so I can live there and rent it out to my roommates. I started investing like a few years ago. I was trading stocks. I'm still doing stocks right now, but I plan to sell them all and go into real estate because it's more lucrative, I find, and you're able to leverage your money better.
Awesome. And so is the overall goal with this first investment property in Kingston to like house hack and live for free, house hack and cash flow? What's the overall target?
So I'm trying to house hack and get some cash flow. So I'd be living for free as well. But I'm also trying to get some cash flow, and then appreciation is also really nice as well.
All right. Awesome. Well, if you've got a couple of the properties ready for screen share, let's pull them up and check them out, or the spreadsheets, whichever you prefer.
Yeah. I'll just share my screen now then.
Yep.
Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So this is property number 1.
Okay.
About 23 minutes from Queens, so it's pretty close for student rentals. It doesn't say how many beds and how many bathrooms, which kind of sucks. It's a townhouse.
Yeah, and then it's got units in the basement, does it? Because I see it says 2-unit.
Yeah, it says, I don't know what that means, because does it mean you get both the townhouses?
I wouldn't think. I don't know Kingston's market that well. It's definitely something that you'll have to check out with your realtor once you get to the bottom of it. But I'm going to guess that there's probably just like a basement unit or something. Let's just go through the photos.
Okay. Yeah, because we tried to page the realtor, but he didn't answer yet, so we're going to try again tomorrow and try to get a contact.
Mm-hmm.
So it's already pretty renovated, and like it doesn't seem like there's much work to be done. And I'm trying to follow the 1% rule. I'm gonna charge about $3,000 a month.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, so yeah, it does look like there's 2 hot water heaters there, just kind of as an aside. So definitely will be interesting to hear from your realtor what they've got for perspective there. What does a bedroom rent for on average to like a Kingston student?
On the low side, about 600. On the high side, about 800. If you want like a single room by yourself, it could be up to 1,000.
Okay. And then what about in like more tertiary neighborhoods like this was this a 20-minute drive or a 20-minute walk? Sorry.
20-minute walk.
Okay. 20-minute walk's not too bad.
So this could go for about 700 to 800.
A bedroom. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Depends on how you market it and like how nice the property is. So this is pretty nice. So I think I can get away with 750.
Okay. Interesting. So yeah, I guess like it's just a little bit hard on this one just because we don't understand what that second unit is and we don't know the bedrooms.
Yeah. So let's do the next one.
Yeah.
This is on the same street. They don't have any pictures, so
This is a different address though? Yeah. Okay, so this is a 4-bedroom rented at 1870.
yeah, I don't know why they rent so low in this one. They must have bought it really low, and that's why. But I'll be bumping that up a lot.
Yeah, that's definitely something like as long as you're confident that that's well below fair market value because
Yeah,
obviously that's less than 500 a bedroom.
that's way under market value from what I've seen on
Yeah,
PGG and like Facebook Marketplace.
for Kingston, right?
Yeah, for Kingston,
Okay. Yeah,
near Queens,
gotcha.
and then that's just what there is. You want to see the next one?
Sure. Yeah, this one doesn't have a lot of photos, so
Yeah.
hard to say.
So this one's about 15 minutes from Queens.
Mm-hmm.
It's a semi, so it's a little better than the townhouse. But the only problem is that there's only one bathroom, and I want 2 bathrooms, just so that I can market better. So,
Gotcha. Yeah. Obviously, this is a bit of an older construction too, compared to the other two that we were looking at before. So this is kind of like a 3-4 bedroom. I'm going to guess maybe the fourth bedroom's that back addition we saw,
yeah,
or kind of a living room that's converted into a bedroom. So I guess we can notice something here. It seems pretty consistent. Like all these properties you've shown me so far are 300,000, and we're looking at roughly 4 bedrooms. So it seems like 75,000 a bedroom's kind of the going rate, as far as purchasing in Kingston.
um, I got another one.
Yep,
Actually, the 300 for those 3 houses are like the best prices I've seen in Kingston. Most of them are pretty pricey. Like,
closer to 4.
yeah. So this is the one I was gonna buy, but then like 2 days ago I saw these new properties pop up, so I'm like, those are better deals. So this is 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. It's really nicely
And this
renovated.
one's renting for 2,300.
Yeah. This guy
Nice.
also bought it at 23 2300 as well, like 4 years ago.
Oh, okay. That's
So
what
he
it was
bought it at
renting
a really
for.
cheap price. Yeah.
Okay. And then is there street parking or where do you park there?
In the back. So I'll show you the
Okay.
picture.
And so is that a big factor in Kingston to get those premium rents? Do you need a parking space per bedroom?
Not really, because I'm renting to students and students only have cars. Like they bus a lot, right?
Yeah, each school kind of has its own, like each school and city often has its own culture. So, was just kind of curious.
So everything looks really nice. They have a back here. They
Yeah,
have one parking spot. It'd be in the back.
gotcha.
Like the car would be here, basically.
Yeah, okay.
And then that's basically it.
All right. And then, so I guess, have you ran the numbers on these? Do you got a spreadsheet that we can check out or?
Yeah, I don't have a spreadsheet, but I have it on paper. I can tell you right now.
Sure, yeah. Just walk me through the numbers roughly.
So seven. So I have 3 roommates that I'm gonna live with, and like we've already
Yep.
agreed on the price. So 775
Okay.
times 3 times. So this is for a year, or do you want to do a month?
Let's just go by the month. That's fine.
A
Yeah.
month,
So
okay.
2,300 a month.
Yeah, 2,300 a month. The mortgage, um, I could get. So let's do for like one of these houses for 300, because this is
Yep.
what I'm gonna plan for. The mortgage would be about 900.
Mm-hmm.
So
So yeah, that leaves us about 1,400.
yeah, and then you got property tax. That's about 2,500.
Okay,
a
so
year.
about 200 a month.
Yeah. And then health insurance, it's about 120 a
Yeah,
month.
probably around there.
And then that's it. And then
So,
utilities they're paying for as well.
and they're going to pay utilities.
Yeah.
Okay, like again, maybe this works because it's going to be your house or your friends, but I guess just based upon the numbers we've seen so far, right? I think everyone was charging inclusive rents where the landlords were paying for utilities, right?
Um,
The one guy that was doing 18 something, that was inclusive, I think.
yeah, that was.
And then what was the 2300? Was that one inclusive or
Right. What do you mean 2300?
or wasn't there one renting for 2300 a
Oh,
month? I just wondered,
yeah.
was that inclusive or
It doesn't say.
okay, so that could go either way, but I would guess it probably is. So again, if you're able to do that, that's great for you, but I would definitely whatever if you're going to have a unique situation for yourself, I think it's also very important to run a scenario just normal, right? So again, just make sure you really study each neighborhood. And if it turns out certain neighborhoods rent a lot less to students than other neighborhoods, make sure you factor that in. Even if you're able to maybe get above average rents because it's going to be you and your buddies moving in for the first couple of years. Once that kind of phase runs out or runs its course, I would want to make sure that I've got a very clear pivot where I can still make the same sort of return that I originally set out with on my investment. But all that being equal, it if you can get like 700 or more a month per bedroom and you can buy a bedroom for 75,000, I think that's a great deal. Even if you end up having to pay for utilities, if you don't have to pay for utilities, that's going to be an even more fantastic cash flowing opportunity. Because like right now, if you actually don't have to pay utilities on the property, we're looking at almost $1,000 a month in cash flow while you're living in the units. So
Over a
that's a
thousand.
pardon.
It's over 1,000.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. I was rounding down to be conservative, but yeah, it's definitely a great situation to be in. Um, so I think as long as you're confident in your rent prices, both for when you live there as well as once you move out, I think that's the biggest issue that I could see. And yeah,
What
it,
I was thinking is that since I'm moving out, like once all my roommates graduate, I could rent for the 4 bedrooms, and I can even drop the price like a little more, since I'm gonna get the extra bedroom to cash flow, right? Since I'm gone, so I'll have 4 rooms rented out instead of 3. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like again, it seems like you've got great opportunity. Now, obviously, we didn't count repairs and maintenance, bad
oh yeah,
debt,
for sure.
vacancy, all those things, property management. But again, we've got so much room there that even once you factor those in, you're still going to be left with a an overall strong cash flowing property. So, like the reason I didn't really bring those up was because you're also living in one of the bedrooms. So essentially, the rent you're foregoing by that would likely easily cover all those other expenses I mentioned. So, yeah, I think Kingston seems like an overall interesting opportunity. As I've mentioned, I've done one video on Kingston in the past. I don't love the long-term population growth trajectory, but as long as the school's there, I think it's got a great opportunity, right? So, and again, I think Queens in particular is because of a lot of the programs, I think that they're likely to stay hands-on with a lot of their education compared to other programs, right? Like if Queens was just a generic school, like didn't have maybe like the engineering component or some of the other programs it's known for, I don't know if I'd be as confident long term. But either way, I think that, the numbers that we're looking at to be able to find a 1% cash flowing student rental property in a city that actually has a real population base is great.
What are your thoughts on like the growth in Kingston? Do you have any idea on that?
Yeah, so if you haven't watched the video I've done, I'd definitely encourage you to watch that. And for anyone watching this video on the replay, we're starting to do videos on all the major markets in Ontario, so definitely check that out. When I look at Kingston, right, compared to the rest of Eastern Ontario, it's going to grow from a population standpoint about half as fast as the region, right? So it's going to grow about half as fast as like the Oshawa-Durham region or the Ottawa area. And again, it's still growing. So I'm not really knocking Kingston in a big way, but I'm saying if you were to compare it to the other regional centers, I would suspect that they're likely to have a greater appreciation than Kingston would, all other things being equal based upon the data we're aware of today.
So currently, I'm actually living like in the GTA area, like near Toronto, and I don't plan to hold this property for like more than like 5 or 6 years, because like after I graduate, I might hold it for a few more years and then sell, and then plan to invest in a property near my area. So where do you suggest I should buy a property in as a first time investor or a young investor
Yeah,
to get
like
into it?
I still like the idea of house hacking this. Do you want to stop the screen share just so we're full screen, Brandon? But I definitely still like the idea of you house hacking in it. If you're willing to do that, one, it's going to keep your overall costs low. So that's a bonus, allowing you to likely save more money for the next property. Two, you'll really get a bit of hands-on experience. So, a lot of new investors, when they first get started, especially if they've never owned a property before, they just know nothing about a house, right? Like they don't even know where the water meter is. They don't know how the furnace works. Like they don't really understand plumbing or electricity. And just living in a house that you sort of own, or even if you're just kind of the live-in landlord for 4 years, you're going to pick up a bunch of useful skills. Now, does a landlord have to have those skills or a real estate investor? No, but I think it is a compliment to you if you can have those skills. Because even just small things like you'll be better at dealing with contractors and things of that nature if you've done basic repairs yourself or just watch people do basic repairs in your own property. Based upon the timeline you're saying, unless you personally have a thesis that post-secondary education rental properties are going to be in a bad place 5 to 6 years from now, that's a decent enough time horizon. And if you don't have a hard exit, right, like it sounds like you won't have a hard exit, like triggering event, right? You can, hey, you know what? If the market's hot, I'll sell it now once I'm done school. If it's not, I'll keep it a couple more years and I'll sell it when it is hot. Having that
Yeah.
flexibility is really nice. And yeah, I would say jump into it if it's something that you're already thinking about and interested in. For me, my first property I bought was when I was 25, but I essentially just recreated the student experience. I had a bunch of buddies move back into the house with me, right? Rented it out, was able to house hack, live for free. And that really allowed me to save up a lot more money so I could go get the next property. And what's great is because again, 25 is still relatively young. I know we've got a lot of young investors on my YouTube channel these days, but 25 is still relatively young to be getting into your first property. And what that meant was, and you'll be at an even greater advantage with this, Brandon, is I became the house guy to a lot of my friends, right? Like a lot of my peer group thought of me as like the real estate guy. So then when they're thinking about buying a house, they come to you. And that often, again, problems or profits being one of our like core slogans, represents a great opportunity because they're going to be like, hey, Brandon, like I'm thinking about buying a house too, but like, I don't know, I'm a little scared. And there might be a chance that you can JV with them or that maybe you can borrow their money if they don't want to invest directly, right? And all those little tangential benefits that come from you just being the real estate guy because you own the property while you were going to university. So for me personally, like I would leverage that and I would even make that a little bit of like who I was as my identity at university, because again, as all those people go on, when, like the people you meet in university, most of them, it'll probably be like 5-7 years after university that they'll start thinking of buying, but they're still going to remember you and be like, I wonder if he kept up with it. Right. And because like now we're in the social media age, there's a great chance they're going to keep an eye on you longer, right? Especially if you share part of your investing story on social media. And there's so much value if you can plant those seeds and just have that breadcrumb trail for people to essentially self-indoctrinate themselves to understanding your business model, your investment philosophy, and all that. That's essentially what I'm doing on social media.
Yeah, seems like a good idea. But do you have any like particular locations that are like hot right now to jump in like a few years from now near the beach?
Um, I think there's a lot of opportunities. A few years from now is a really long time, especially in this news cycle that we happen to find ourselves in, where the world's changing every other day, it feels like. But if I bet on the world not ending, and I'd likely bet that way if I had to bet, I personally love like the Oshawa Durham region. Seems like it's got a lot of positives. from a overall balance perspective, it seems like the east side is a little bit cheaper than the west side. So I can see certain draws towards that. But that being said, I also think Brantford, Ontario, which is on the west side of the GTA, is really well positioned for a lot of growth. It's got a population base of 100,000 right now, and by 2040, it's predicted they'll have 160,000, right? So about 60% increase over 20 years. And I just think that just naturally, because it's a little bit further out of the golden horseshoe and it's just so much cheaper, that there's going to become a point where those prices are going to level out. And Brantford's really going to play a lot of catch up. I've seen some really interesting presentations from different real estate investors who had very biased and biased interest in wanting this to happen, but arguments being made that Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, and Toronto makes for a very good similarity between Silicon Valley and San Jose. So again, like Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, all those areas I could see having a lot of potential, especially as we look towards having more and more of our communities connected by light rail and hopefully someday fast rail, right? Like speed trains. And the 401 corridor is the busiest corridor in North America. So certainly at some point in time, it would make sense to see some sort of rail link connecting at least Windsor to Toronto, if not Windsor to Ottawa. And certainly if we were to see that happen, that entire corridor would flourish because of that availability of transportation. In the past, the Liberal government was pushing towards that, the provincial Liberal government. They're not in power anymore. So it's unlikely until a new political party gets in place and it's going to be their thing that we'll see a lot of push for it. But it seems inevitable when you're on the busiest highway corridor.
So you're thinking of Brantford investing then? But then, and those areas are kind of pricey, like the Durham region, which you were saying before.
Yeah, so those are definitely more aggressively priced. But if I was talking about the GTA area, that's where I'd naturally think of. If we're not talking directly in the GTA, then Brantford is like my go-to. If you're just asking me all of Ontario, obviously I'm very biased, but I love Southwestern Ontario for a variety of reasons. So I think markets like Sarnia, London, Woodstock, Chatham, Windsor, all those areas are really well positioned to do well. If you're looking for a couple places that I've maybe never mentioned before, Ingersoll right now is absolutely on fire. It's likely going to receive a lot of the similar benefits that Woodstock, Ontario did by just being on the 401 and being in between both London and Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge. So I definitely see a lot of potential if you just wanted some little random hot tip. My hot tip today is Ingersoll.
Thanks. So like these small towns like Ingersoll and Brantford, like what type of people are you targeting for rentals? Like they're not students or anything, and like.
So I'm going to make a big distinguishing, or I'm going to distinguish between Brantford and Ingersoll because like Brantford, we're talking 100,000 people, so that in Canada, legitimately, that's a real city. Ingersoll, yes, we're getting into a smaller community there, but it's a bedroom community for both London and Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge. So really, it is that. It's a bedroom community, right, for people to commute from. I live in a smaller community. It's safer. My kids like it. Better schools, less crime, all that stuff. But then I commute into the big city, and I'm right along the 401 corridor, which is what Ingersoll is.
But can't those families just buy properties themselves? Like, how do you know that there's a rental market in those small communities?
Well, again, it's just a matter of like informing yourself. I own apartment buildings in Ingersoll, so that's why I can say it, because we're crushing our projections. So we've got bachelor apartments that are just flying off the shelf at I believe it's 15% higher average rents than we were expecting to rent it out for. So and then if you look at the sales data in Ingersoll as well, I forget the stats off the top of my head, but they were very promising for last year. So that's really what's informing me, is just the data. Again, you can look at like CMHC's data. For larger markets like Brantford, you'll be able to find CMHC data on it as far as the average vacancies, average rent prices, all that good stuff.
Do you have any tips for best way to market your rental property?
Yeah, just like the best tips, in my opinion, are like keeping it simple and making it easy. So there's two sides to this equation. One is I want as much attention as possible, but I also want the best tenants possible. So what I'm going to do is try and get everyone to see my ads and get everyone to want to live in my building. But then I'm also going to have a vetting process that's going to weed out a lot of the not good candidates. People get really hot and bothered when I talk about my exact tenant screening process. So I'll use another example that I do with my employees. So when we're looking to hire someone, you know, I'm constantly trying to sell them on why my place is an amazing place to work. But on the same time, we've got very clear instructions when you apply for a position at my company that you have to send a selfie video. If you don't send a selfie video, your interview never gets booked. You'll never progress throughout our system of interviews, right? I would look at doing something similar with like my vetting process with tenants. Now, I wouldn't make them shoot a selfie video, but like it could be something as simple as, I said this on a TikTok, like, you know, fill out this application at the bottom, leave me a smiley face. That tells me that their attention to detail is there and they actually clearly and thoroughly read the instructions. As well, I'm not discriminating against them based upon any human rights issues either, which keeps me on the right side of the law there. So I think what I'd really focus on is having great videos. In this day and age, you have to have like virtual tours, right? So whether that's simply you walking through like this, or whether this is you hiring someone with a Matterport to do a 3D imaging. There's actually some pretty cool apps my employees are telling me about now that you can just do on your phone that will do 3D imaging. I think Matterport even has their own app you can download now, so I know the team's playing with that currently. That's more for when we buy businesses, but I think it will also help you if you're trying to rent them out. And then very clear, you know, setting of expectations and what people get. Sometimes I find landlords want to like try and trick people into their apartments. I want to, like, if it's a small apartment, I'm not going to try and like be like, it's perfectly cozy. I'm going to be like, it's a 600 square foot apartment. You can get this. We're going to have some favorable photos that show how you can utilize the space effectively. But I also don't want to waste my time, or these days my property manager's time, you know, having showings that aren't going to go anywhere. So it's really about trying to get as many people aware of your property as possible, get as many people apply as possible, go through the virtual process, especially because we're in COVID and everyone's being trained to do that now, and just be very thorough with your vetting process.
That sounds good. Also, when you collect rent from tenants, how do you like collect it? Is it by check or transfer? Or...
You know, like there's a variety of ways. I'm sure my property manager literally clicks it every single way possible at this point in time, but our preferred way is ETransfers. So like if we're dealing with residential tenants, ETransfer, what you want to do if you own multiple properties, one of the slickest things you can do is just set up a new email address for each property. So like 123 Main Street at gmail.com, set it up for auto deposit, right? And it auto deposits into the right account. Tenants just send it to the address each month, and it's just a very simple, clean process that costs you nothing.
Okay. Also, do you have any preferabilities between student rentals and targeting single-family homes?
The real thing you just have to be aware of is like any type, when we're comparing investment types of investment assets, like there's going to be pros and cons, right? Student rentals are often perceived to be a greater risk, but there's also greater reward often with them, right? So usually you get above average returns with a student rental and above average cash flows. Oftentimes it comes along with above average pain in the ass factor. Where single family homes, it will depend upon the class of tenant, right? Is it an A, B, C, or D? But if we're dealing with like a C or above tenant class, I would expect you're probably going to have as good or a better experience with that tenant profile on average than students. But again, even each school is different, right? Like, and the type of students you're getting, you know, one year we rented to the Fanshawe baseball team. That wasn't a lot of fun from a landlord perspective, but I know those kids had a lot of fun in my house. So again, like it's even hard to, you know, talk about in broad strokes students versus normal tenants because it's such a microcosm. At the end of the day, my biggest recommendation for anyone, regardless of the type of investments that you've got in real estate, is make sure you get the right tenants in there in the first place. Make sure you manage expectations from day one and have very clear communications. And one of my big things I tell a lot of my students now is you also need to manage the expectation on how to communicate. So I don't want tenants messaging me on Facebook, Instagram, email, text message, and phone calls. Like, let's pick one or two communication channels. Those are our primary communication channels, and we're going to lay that out in our set expectations. But also, now I know exactly where to go to communicate with you, and you know where exactly to go to communicate with me. All that being said, really appreciate you booking this episode of Deal Destruction, Brandon. I think it's amazing that, you know, someone at your age is thinking about these things and that you've already been investing in the stock market. That is awesome. Definitely, it looks like you're looking at the right sort of properties in Kingston, or at least the sort of properties I'd be looking at in Kingston if I was an 18-year-old student. Just make sure that you're confident on those rents for any type of neighborhood. And yeah, I think there's a lot of potential there for you. So I definitely encourage you to house hack if that's something you're interested in doing. And you're going to learn so much in those 4 years while you're going to school. But I think you'll also be able to build your network and your personal brand with that as well, which will hopefully bring a lot more capital. And you might surprise yourself. You might end up with a lot more properties before the end of your 4 years.
Okay. Thank you, Matt McKeever.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. Have a great day.
What are you saying? Not the time or the place, baby, it's not right.